Dungeon Builder's monster import feature allows you to populate your monster database in a snap. Using Dungeon Builder's spreadsheet template in our import tool, you can import up to 100 monsters at a time, and you can do multiple imports of different spreadsheets. The process starts by clicking on this little button over here on the Monster Overview tab. This brings up the import screen, which has a couple of links here for downloading a blank CSV or a partially completed CSV, so you can use it as a template to guide your entry. So if you don't have a copy of the CSV, please download one of these. Now, doing the actual import is pretty straightforward. You just choose the Choose File button, then you find the spreadsheet to upload, and then you click the Upload button. But before doing that, I wanted to spend a little time talking about the template so you can understand how it's set up. And actually, it's pretty simple. The template is structured with the Dungeon Builder database fields positioned on the top as column headers across here, and the monster information is entered in rows down here. Taking a closer look, the first row up here has the name of the fields that are found in the monster database in Dungeon Builder. Let me expand these columns so you can see this. We have fields like monster name, monster class, monster level, alignment, experience, etc. No surprises there. Now the second row indicates whether that particular field is mandatory or optional, and the third row indicates the format of the data that must be entered. Is it a number, a date, a text entry, etc.? And it also provides you the range of valid values that you can use. Now taking a look at this, you can see that we have not replicated every field that you can find in the monster database screens in Dungeon Builder. There are only 24 fields in the spreadsheet, so you can't use the template to fill in all the data for all your monsters. Rather, the spreadsheet is meant to be a tool to get you up and running with some basic information in a method that is faster than entering it in manually. That said, there is still a bit of work here as we've increased the number of mandatory fields that you need to complete. This has been done to avoid having data inconsistencies in your monster database. You may recall that if you entered a monster manually using the screens in Dungeon Builder, you have only 4 fields that are required. Well, if you look across here on the mandatory optional fields, you can see that there's a lot more. There's actually 15 mandatory fields. So although the spreadsheet is much faster for loading up your monsters, it does present a higher bar to get over. Now, most of these fields will be fairly self-explanatory. For example, looking at these 2 experience fields here, experience base and experience per hit point, they are both mandatory fields and they need to be entered in numbers. For base experience, you can enter a number between 1 and 999,999. And for experience per hit points, you enter a number between 1 and 9,999 per hit point. However, other fields will be a little bit more complicated. Like, for example, this field here, attacks 1 frequency period, which is how frequently this attack can be used. It is a mandatory field, and it has valid values of segments, rounds, hours, turns, days, months, and years. So you'll actually have to enter that value in, as you can see here in these 2 examples. Things get even a little bit more complicated when you think about things like hit dice or damage dice. Here we're looking at damage dice, okay? These are mandatory fields as well. And in addition to providing a numeric of how many dice to use, you also have to enter the actual die type. There's a broad range of dice you can select from, but you'll have to enter D3 or D12 or D20 or whatever. And if there is a modifier that needs to be entered, you'll need to do that as well. You need to type in a plus or a minus sign. If there is no modifier, you just put in an X. Now, one thing to note here is that if you make a mistake and save your template as an Excel workbook, Excel treats the plus and minus sign as an operator, and you won't be able to see it when you save the workbook. You'll have to type in an apostrophe in front of the plus and the minus sign in order to see those symbols. However, if you continue to save the spreadsheet as a CSV file, you won't have this problem. One more thing I want to note here is that you'll see that row 4 is blank. That is by design, and that is the only blank row you should have here. Do not delete row 4, and when you enter your monsters, right now we have 4 notional monsters here. If you were to enter 30 or 40 monsters, you don't want to have any line breaks between any of those monsters. The reason why is that Dungeon Builder will treat line breaks as the end of the list. So if you have 30 monsters you're uploading and you have a line break between monster 8 and monster 9, Dungeon Builder will only load the first 8 monsters. It won't load the other 22 monsters. So make sure there's no line breaks. Make sure you have a continuous list of all your monsters 1 through X. So once again, while the spreadsheet is faster to load monsters, there is a little thinking that has to go into filling it out. Okay, I've pre-populated a spreadsheet that I will use in my example here to show you how fast the import process works. Let me bring that up. Now, as you may be starting out from scratch, you'll have to take your monster information, whether it's in digital or paper format, and reconfigure it into the spreadsheet to make sure you can load it up. And what I have here are a collection of 8 monsters. I've got an alligator, a couple of angels, and a few ants, as well as an ape. And I've intentionally left this field here blank. The monster class is blank for the ant queen because I want to show you that we trigger an error when you do that. Now you can leave it blank because it's an optional field, but as Dungeon Builder will put a default entry in each field that is left blank, it can be a pain in the neck to go back and correct that stuff. So we encourage you to fill out all the fields, whether they're mandatory or optional. But as you can see, I have a bunch of data here for each of these monsters, and this information is not specific of anything. It's just numbers I picked out in order to run this test. But let's go over to Dungeon Builder, and we will choose a file, Monsters through A, and then we'll upload it. And that's it. It's been uploaded. Okay, this is the screen saying that the upload has completed. And you'll notice that monster class was not defined and the default class was assigned in one instance. If I'd had 3 monsters that did not have a class entry, you would see 3 error messages here. So if I go take a look at the monster tab, I will see that all those monsters have been populated, and I'll pick on this greater angel, and all their experience, their damage from their weapon types, the frequency of attacks, their hit dice, their armor class, you name it, all the information has been populated. Angel Prince, let's look at this ape. Okay, so very different data for the ape. Let's go take a look at Queen Ant and see what was populated. See, it put in the default value, which in this case is the last entry in the common classes, which is undead. Okay, you don't want your Queen Ant to be an undead. You want it to be an insect. So we'll change it to insect and we'll save that. But the lesson here is fill out your optional fields as well. Now, once you've got your data loaded here, these monsters are ready to be loaded into encounter tables and be used in generating encounters, as you'll be able to generate the number of monsters appearing as well as their experience. However, if you want to flesh out your monsters, knock yourself out, you just go to these other tabs and fill out the values that are of importance to you. And that is all there is to it. Thank you for watching.